Hello, this is Francesca Recchia, and I would like to welcome you all to a new episode of the Polis Project Weekly Dispatches. The last couple of weeks in Pakistan have been quite eventful. There are agitation and protests, and thousands of people on the street, from students to health workers to doctors. The Baluch students have been protesting for months now, and in the last few weeks have been protesting for the cutting of the reservation in university and the cutting of scholarships. It seems today that things are changing, but the protest is still ongoing. The female health workers are protesting for to receive better salaries in view of the growing inflation. And the human rights defenders have been protesting for months to demand an end to target killings and disappearances. In all this complex situation, in the last month, what happened was that 11 opposition parties got together to create the Pakistan Democratic Front. In all this number of contestations and brewing dissent, it's very complicated to make sense of the situation. So we asked today Marvi Sirmed and Ayesha Siddiqa to help us make sense of what is happening. Thank you very much for being with us. Let me introduce our guests. Dr. Ayesha Siddiqa is a research associate at the Centre for International Studies and Diplomacy at SOAS in London. She is a PhD in War Studies at the King's College and the author of 2 books on Pakistan's security and military. Marvi Sirmed is a freelance journalist. She is a peace and democracy advocate and a human rights defender. She is currently an executive member of the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. Thank you so much, Marvi and Ayesha, for being with us.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Let me start. I'll start with a number of questions that I'll pose to both of you, and then we can move the conversation forward. So, as I said, the Pakistan Democratic Movement was set up in September this year, and it was set up with a 26-point agenda to confront what they define an anti-public and anti-nation government. The movement brought together 11 opposition parties that are very different from one another, with different priorities and different agendas themselves. So my question is, what can we expect from this convergence? And Marvi, we'll start with you while we wait for Ayesha to come back.
Thank you very much, Francesca. I think there is a genuine optimism about the establishment of PDM and the way PDM rallies have shown in past 2-3 weeks after the 2 rallies, the momentum it has picked up in Pakistan. But although I'm an optimist, but when it comes to posing genuine, meaningful opposition to Pakistan's powerful military establishment, I always look back to the track record of these political forces and the way military establishment has been able to manipulate the opposition, the political opposition to their policies. I am not I'm not overly optimistic about it because of various factors. One is that, all right, PDM was established very recently, but the move towards PDM was started quite a while ago. which was not joined by major political parties, including PML and Pakistan People's Party, with the enthusiasm that we were expecting at that time. There were many ground realities, including one important point that was discussed at that time. It was a year and a half ago. One important point that was discussed was that both these major political parties have very strong stakes in the current system. Not very strong, but stronger stakes than other political parties, including the one that has Islamic religious credentials and very strong credentials of working with the establishment, which is Jamiyat-e-Ulama Islam, Fazlur Rahman. We call it JUIF. Now, this party was leading the move towards the establishment of PDM since last 2 years at least, and the guy who's he's the leader of this party. He's a very experienced parliamentarian and politician. In addition to being an Islam and a religious, personality, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, he has been trying to talk to both these major political parties and he was in conversation with them, and they had half-heartedly, I mean, it seems from their actions, half-heartedly agreed to be with him, but they were not with his movement fully, with full, vigor. And that is why the sit-in staged by Maulana Fazlur Rahman last year failed, in the sense that after 15 days, it just fizzled out. And apparently there was a discussion, a negotiation between Maulana Fazlur Rahman and military, and so it just fizzled out. But 1 year down the road, PDM suddenly is established. And when every political party seems to be negotiating with the military establishment separately, as well as collectively, but more so separately. So to me, it seems like this seems to be a very strong ploy to get leverage on the negotiation table and to get political space for themselves. Although I cannot ignore the fact that for the first time, so many, such a strong and clear stance has been taken by someone so popular among the masses and head of such a big popular political party, PMLN, like the Mr. Nabashiri has taken, and he has clearly called out the army chief and ISI head for encroaching the political domain. I would just like to wait and see what happens, but it has certainly created some kinds of very strong ripples in the status quo, and it just remains to be seen how it goes, how the political parties, we are watching them closely. I can't hear you, Francesca.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Ayesha, would like to hear from you as well. So, what are the expectations towards the current noise that PDM is making and on the political arena?
Francesca, thank you firstly for inviting me. Very quickly, what is happening? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Now.
So what is expected is, what is happening in the moment is, I heard some of you.
No, we lost you again.
We lost you.
Aisha, can you? No, we can't hear you. Let's go on, and then when she comes back, we'll pose other questions to her. Marvi, the other part you just mentioned the rallies that the PDM organized, and it seems that that kind of popular mobilization and mass protest is one of the main tools.
I'm back. Can I just quickly continue?
Sure.
Thank you. We again lost her.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, let's continue. So what I was, Aisha, I'm not sure what's happening with your connection.
I know. I'm so sorry. So can I So very quickly, I think the point that you were making earlier, that there are different protests happening throughout Pakistan, that is still very disconnected from, the lady health workers and workers of Radio Pakistan who've been fired, the Baloch and Pashtun students. Now, they're not connected with what political parties are doing. The objective of the main political parties, including JUIF, that Marvi talked about, is very simple. One, it is to force the military to jettison its relationship with Imran Khan, who is seen as a prime minister selected and brought to power rather than come naturally and through an organic process. The other is for the military to agree to hold elections again with little intervention. And thirdly, to ensure that military pushes back in terms of its involvement in politics. I'm a bit more comfortable with the earlier two goals, which is jettisoning Imran Khan and holding elections. I'm not saying that it's about to happen. It's round the corner. I think it's a political game in which we need to sit with a bag of popcorns and watch what is happening, and see whether this is a shorter episode or a longer episode. But I think that when it comes to negotiating long-term power with the military, political power with the military has not been weakened. Military will not be weakened as a result of these protests. And that is a totally different subject. That's a long-term strategy which all political parties do not have at the moment.
Thank you. So my question was sort of a follow-up to what you've been saying. So one of the main strategies of the PDM is mass mobilization. And I understand that they are separate from all the other protests that are going on, but they've managed to bring together a significant number of people. Just today, the National Counterterrorism Authority issued an alert for a possible threat against the rallies that they are organizing in the next weeks in Peshawar and Quetta. I wonder if this is a sign of a growing discomfort towards the fact that a lot of people are getting together, and whether this mobilization goes beyond their electoral base, considering the numbers.
So, who do you want to start? Is it a question to both?
Yeah, to both. Whomever wants to take it.
Very quickly, if Marvi allows me to, very quickly. I think, when we say mass protest, we have to understand that these are gatherings. These are political gatherings.
Okay, technology is not on our side today.
Yeah. Am I back? All right.
Now it seems you are.
These are not massive. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are not mass gatherings which are happening in Pakistan. There are two issues here. One is that the two main parties, Pakistan People's Party and PMLN,
Oh, Marvi, do you want to pick it up?
Yeah. I think these the gatherings that are happening. For example, the gathering of the lady health workers, the gathering, the protest by the Baloch students, which is now joined by the Lahore students as well. These are not, you can't say that a big mass of people is coming out and they are against the current government and they are against the military establishment. I can't say that these are pockets of protest, but it's not that they are not significant. Uh, uh, Today, after 14 days of the protest of the Baloch students, I think today was the first day when a major political party actually tried to tap into that emotion, and that is PMLN. Mariam Nawaz Sharif has just visited the camp by the Baloch students, which was also joined by the Lahore progressive students of Lahore. So these youngsters have been. Their problems are not, they're not big glamorous political slogans against military. These are very real problems. Lady health workers have lost their jobs. They're now the broadcasting corporations, the state-run media. A lot of hundreds of people have lost their jobs there. Then the students in Balochistan, they have lost their quotas in other parts of the country, and Gilgit-Baltistan people, and especially the students, they after the universities and colleges shifted online, they could not participate because most of the time the internet is down there. The Gilgit-Baltistan political activists have been in prison for 10 years or more just for taking part in protests. So their problems are very real, the immediate problems, which might or might not be, shared by the vast majority of the country, which is in Punjab. But it is significant that Punjab's emotion against the powers who have done what they have done with Mr. Nawaz Sharif, that is, if that joins the frustrations and agitation and protest of the other smaller communities, then it gives a, you see, it might not be massive on street, but it definitely delegitimizes the current setup. And by setup, I do not mean just the government. At the same time, I do agree that military establishment is not going to go softer or going to just disintegrate into pieces, but definitely they are under pressure. They are going to be under pressure, and when they are under pressures, it's very possible, very much possible that they do something drastic. And what that drastic could be, I don't see that drastic action could be direct seizure of power. I don't think they'll do that. They will continue in some way this hybrid system with massive power in their own control. And this hybrid system is currently being run by Imran Khan. Tomorrow it can be run by 2 or 3 major stakeholders. I don't know, but this hybrid system is going to go on in Pakistan despite the protests.
Can I come in here? Francesca, very quickly. I think what's important to realize is that the two major political parties, non-religious political parties, PPP has very depleted strength to get its people out on the streets to protest. PMLN, again, is a party which is not used to, to a culture of party workers coming out and protesting. These are gatherings. Political gatherings is a totally different ball game in Pakistani politics. Now, they are increasing pressure, of course. It's significant that for the first time, I think two significant things have happened. One, a Punjabi leader, which is Nawaz.
Francesca, you are muted. I think I can't hear both of you.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think we've lost Ayesha again. I'm not too sure what is happening.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
Back.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, this is painful. So one is that a Punjabi leader has spoken and criticized the military, but the other very significant development is that police officers in Sindh, they threatened to go on leave. They submitted leave applications in protest to institutional intervention, by the military, by its intelligence agencies. That is one act which has really shaken the military, which has sent a strong signal. Now, what will happen? Marvi says that she doesn't see direct intervention. Right now, we are at a situation where you have the political parties, you have the military, and you also have Imran Khan government. All three are players, and all three are not backing down at the moment. Some negotiations have to begin, and in case the three, one has to, all of these have to take one step forward, or one step backward, in order to negotiate. But if they don't, then you cannot rule out the possibility of direct intervention by the military.
So this is a lesser hopeful vision of things. So my question, has been partly asked, answered, but I want to know it more explicitly. So the Nawaz Sharif, in his speech on the 16th of October, openly challenged the military. And for someone as established as him, is kind of a novelty. It's not a novelty that a political leader does that, but someone as, if you like, mainstream as him, it's quite new. So my question is whether these can open new scenarios in terms of the political debate or not.
Me?
Ayesha, do you want to go ahead since your mic is not working?
Yeah, can you explain the last bit of the question? He has Nawaz Sharif has made the speech, but what was the question?
So, and in his speech, there was an open confrontation to the military. And so I wonder whether this open challenge may open new scenarios in terms of the political debate.
See, it's very limited in its focus. One, what Nawaz Sharif is aiming at is returning to power, or his party returning to power. Is he planning to change substantively and for a long-term change relationship with the military? The answer is no. The military remains powerful. For those in Pakistan who talk about weakness of the military, I don't think so. There's nothing there. The players that the political parties have are the same cast of characters who have dealt with the military for a very long time and will remain do that. There is no plan. I do not see or even foresee an institutional structural plan to push back the military. There is no design there. The only thing with the political parties are right now asking for is jettison Imran Khan, who's putting Pakistan into trouble. He's misgoverned, he's mismanaged. Allow us to come and we will govern and do not intervene. But in order to negotiate, I think there has to be some deeper structure to it, which needs to be introduced. In 1970s, let me remind you, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the head of Pakistan People's Party, then he tried to introduce a structure to manage the military. No party at this point in time is even coming close to suggesting a new structure through which they can, for a longer term, for a medium to longer term, push back the armed forces.
Thank you. Marvi, do you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just responding to your question, agreeing with what Aisha said. Um, Francesca, you said that and everyone is saying that Nawaz Sharif's speech actually opened the front with army, and he was, to my mind, when I heard that speech for the first time, and then I went back and I rewinded and heard it. I heard it thrice. Unfortunately, I did not see an open challenge to army. All I could hear was he was appeasing army, saluting them for fighting borders. Which border they are fighting on? It is just the Durand line. On the eastern border, they are not fighting. LOC maybe, but and on that border we have our Chaman incident where so many innocent people were killed by this very army which Nawaz Sharif was saluting, and in the tribal districts which are adjoining the Afghanistan-Pakistan border called Durand Line, and Har Kamar happened there. So many in Kamar, there were so many people killed, and the PTM Pakhtun Tahaffuz movement leadership was directly accused of terrorism there. That has been thrown out by the courts. So and then the same military is doing what they're doing in Balochistan. So enforced disappearances are increasing every day with impunity. So saluting that force at one hand, and then calling out just two generals, you see, and I think he was building on the so to speak existing displeasure that might exist among the other generals against these two, especially General Qamar Bajwa, for having manipulated the political system to get an extension in his service, which is always a volatile issue, because that bars other generals to come forward, to come up the ladder of hierarchy. So I think he was just doing that while not while appeasing the institution. And after his speech, his daughter spoke, and she did not speak against the military establishment at all. She was just, all guns were blazing against the PTI government. Same with Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's speech in Gujranwala. I'm talking about the first rally of PDM in Gujranwala, that is in Punjab. And Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who was leading the alliance, he also did not speak much about the military establishment's antics, except slightly about how 2018 elections were manipulated by the military establishment. And the exactly same happened in the second rally in Karachi. No one actually spoke clearly about the military establishment, except speaking about very minor, softer references to the elections. Nothing much. Even Maryam Nawaz Sharif, daughter of Nawaz Sharif, she did not even touch the military establishment during her 40-minute speech. She was just speaking about Imran Khan and his government, and the formula was repeated endlessly. So I think by doing that one speech, Mr. Sharif had just set the stage where PDM appears to be raising voice and highlighting and protesting the military establishment's interventions in the political domain, but actually not doing it. And I would, draw your attention back to the first rally in which Mr. Achakzai, Mahmood Achakzai from Balochistan, he is a Pashtun nationalist leader from Balochistan. He, during his speech, said that we were told before the rally that we should not speak against the military. He said that in the speech. So that actually is a big question mark for me personally. I was expecting better if they claim that they are up against the military establishment's policies and their interventions. It doesn't seem so. So I think I would agree with what Ayesha was saying, that this seems to be, as I was also saying earlier, that it would just be the change of faces in the hybrid system. I mean, it might not be Imran Khan, it might be three faces or two faces or maybe one face, you know, partnered with so many others. So the hybrid system is going to go on with, might be, you know, maybe more, even more powers, you know, seized by the military establishment. Both of you are muted.
Yes, please. Ayesha, please go ahead. Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, Francesca, very, very quickly. See, I think what's important to realize is that military as a power in Pakistan is a reality. So anyone who wants to negotiate it cannot abandon it, especially in Punjab, where there is sympathy for Nabashiri, but there is also a lot of appreciation and sympathy for the military. The Punjabis are very kind of connected with the military. And therefore, you notice that Bilawal Bhutto, for example, was trying to make a very traditional speech in the first rally, Gujranwala in Punjab, saying, you know, talking about India, talking about you know, Kashmir and all of that. So one, military is a reality. You can't push it out unless the cost is increased, and by cost it means when people are really, I mean, if there is an open conflict between the society and the military, only then can you completely you know, push back the military. That moment hasn't arrived. Whether it's going to be a hybrid system, again, I would repeat, right now there are three players, there are three parties in this conflict: the PDM, Imran Khan government. I mean, Imran Khan government, if the military tries to touch him, he can also fight back. He can also create problems for the military. So ultimately, there will be a lot of pressure on the military to back off. But right now, none of the three actors seem to be kind of withdrawing or taking a step back. And that's when the conflict can increase. And that's when it becomes significant. And it could take politics in a direction where it oughtn't go.
Thank you. So Marvi, you mentioned the incident, or I mean, I think, yeah, it was Marvi, the incident with the police in Karachi, and that is or no, maybe it was you, Aisha, sorry, that there was that moment in which the military came out a little bruised, because, you know, when the police officers decided to request leave, and then were co-opted and refused to obtain leave because they didn't know how to behave in the face of the interference of the military. There was a moment of serious clash between the institutions of the state that were supposed to be all on the same side. Is that a turning point of any kind, or is that only just a glitch in the system?
Yeah, I think it's just a glitch in the system. It will be controlled by the military in effective way. I mean, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari asking army chief to conduct inquiry, you know, says that all. I mean, army chief is not the one who should conduct the inquiry. Although he can conduct the inquiry within the system, because the within army and the paramilitary force, that was at the time, by the way, under the prime minister. So the fact that he is asking the army chief, and army chief responding to his request one-on-one basis by calling him, and the fact that after that, you know, the actions of the police officers. As I have spoken to the officials in police service, I think that most of their anger was also directed at the Pakistan People's Party's government in Sindh, because they thought that the political leadership has not represented their anger and led them with strength as they were expecting. Because just before that press conference by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, I think 2 hours or 3 hours before that, the chief minister held a press conference, and he failed to address that issue of the kidnap of the senior police officials. And police officials felt that their version was not being presented to the people, and they were, they were not, the leadership was not ready to represent them. So their anger was multifaceted. It was not just against what the paramilitary force had done. Now, keeping this in view, I think the game still slightly got, upped by PMLN leaders deciding to make it public. If you go back to the events of that night, you would realize that it was PMLN leaders who made that episode public. It was not People's Party who made that public. People's Party was obliged to talk about it after the entire ruckus. So I think there is a willingness on the part of People's Party to still keep working within the current structure of the state, where the military holds the power and the politicians just try to look for small, comfortable spaces for themselves within that system. So I do believe that it was just a glitch, and it will be controlled by the military sooner or later.
Can I? Yeah. See, I would call it glitch plus. It's not just a glitch. I have a slightly different perspective on this. It was not that it was not exactly, it's made to look like a post facto, as if the political leadership in Sindh was not on board. What the political leadership in Sindh did hear about these officers going on leave, but what it tried to do was turn the other way. It didn't look, so it wasn't, they weren't, and they encouraged them in, so in that way there was an indirect encouragement. Now, one of the reasons I believe that it wasn't a battle against the military, but this argument that it was also a battle against the political government, I kind of tend to disagree with that, primarily because one of the things with the Sindh government has always tried to keep under control, or a relationship that it has tried to work on, is its relationship with the police. The Sindh government does need the police, and therefore, and indirectly, the pressure that it could not put on the military for its constant intervention that happened, through the police. It's why I call it a glitch plus, because institutionally, it's for the first time that another bureaucratic institution, which was never considered equivalent to the military, has come out and said, hang on, you're damaging us institutionally, push back. Don't kind of, don't don't damage us, don't do things that will incapacitate us. So it's institutional battle which had begun, which is why it's important. Of course the military will control it, of course we'll not hear anything substantive in terms of the inquiry with the chief of army staff has promised, but what it does mean is that it will sufficiently shock the army that its decisions are creating disturbances in institutions that are otherwise supposed to support them.
Thank you. I'll take one of the questions from the audience, and then one audience member just asked, "Do you see this moment as different and unique from other instances of protest?" Either of
Do
you,
I?
whomever
Yeah.
wants to take it.
I think Aisha has touched it in the previous comment. She sees it as a different and a different moment where, for the first time, the police force, part of the state, has stood up against the tactics of the military establishment. And I mean, I do also agree with that, but I'm not that optimist uh, you know about the fact that it will create something drastic, and which will affect the power of the military or the control of the military. It's not going to happen. What may happen, though, is that military establishment might come with renewed force, renewed rigor, with fresh tactics, with more controlling policies, with more controlling actions, with more aggressive actions, to control the dissent. Because I don't think dissent is a formidable word for the military establishment. So I think if any change will happen, I'm so sorry for sounding so dark and so pessimist, but there's a reason for it. There's a reason for my grounding myself into the reality of Pakistan's politics. And I don't know. I don't see it as changing anything substantially. All those small, as Aisha has also said, that small changes might, it might unnerve the military establishment for a bit, but for a bit. I don't see any any change, any big change.
Uh, if I can come back on this, I don't think it's a matter of being optimistic or pessimistic. I think in a trajectory of civil military relations, we have come to a point, Pakistan has come to a point where one of the most important regions, which is, I would say, Punjab, ineffective is effectively is Pakistan. I mean, it's a very crude way of saying it, but that's how it imagines itself to be. It's very powerful. It's a very powerful region. So even Punjab has started to complain. There are disappearances. There are other problems. So this is like the first step. And as the military expands itself, it has a choice. I mean, it can expand itself, it can continue with the hybrid, but what we've experienced with the hybrid within 2 years, 2 to 3 years, I mean, it's Imran Khan government, this hybrid regime has not even completed its 3 years. But within this period, what we've seen is that a government which has not managed to deliver economically or in terms of improving anything in Pakistan has cost the military much more, and therefore the cost has increased. So this time around, what makes this time around different is that there are these small signals of discomfort within the society, and it's perhaps at a later stage that the second round or a third round of confrontation, whenever it happens, you may see the cost for the military of running a hybrid go up.
So I was reading, following up on this, I was reading today that there are commentators that call this moment as a shattering of the veil of fear. Obviously, from what you're saying, doesn't quite seem to be the case in your perception. Do you want to comment on this at all?
Yeah, if I can quickly come in. Uh, See, I don't think, I think it's people's desperation. People are really desperate. economic conditions are not the nicest. So, because of their needs, people are coming out. There is lesser fear, and there is also this understanding. And let's not also forget that there are international players. Saudi Arabia, for instance, is one, which may be at this point in time supporting, forces within Pakistan to kind of, challenge Imran Khan government. That's one possibility. Other regional players as well who are not happy with the Imran Khan government, I would count China in there as well. Maybe kind of helping forces within, and or may have an interest in Imran Khan government being pushed. Now, does it substantively change things as far as civil military relations is concerned? That is a different subject. So, shattering fear, I don't think so. But this is the moment is such that people will come out. Whether this is a moment that political parties would really benefit, work out their differences and agree that there has to be a constant long term pushing back of the military away from politics. Have they arrived at that moment? The answer is no.
Thank you. Marvi, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm repeating myself by saying that, things are not going to change drastically or substantively, but we might see actually more robust controlling actions by the military in coming months. Another thing that is important for the opposition right now is the March, the Senate elections in March, because if they happen in the current political setting. That for Senate, the Electoral College is the provincial assemblies. At last time when it happened, People's Party had a decisive majority in Sindh Assembly, and PMLN had overwhelming majority in the Punjab Assembly. Now, if they happen, both the parties have lost much of their power. PMLN more, PPP less, but both the parties will lose their seats in Senate, and that means that PTI, the ruling party, is going to have a close to the two-third majority with their allies in Senate and in the National Assembly. Now, if that happens, that would mean a complete control of the military over the legislation, and then the structure of constitution might also be they might also attempt to change it, because they have actually their ministers and the retired army officials have been for 2 years now. They have been continuously saying in the media that the 18th constitutional amendment is bad, and if that is the amendment that brings much awaited some sort of political autonomy to the provinces, and other things. So they have been talking against it, that is the one amendment that is responsible for failing the federal government in bringing substantive changes to the system. They are also against the NFC award formula that gives, gives much of the federal resources to the provinces and changes the formula of dividing the revenue among the provinces, which was based on the population before. Now it is based on other factors as well. So if this election happens with the current electoral college, then both the parties are going to lose what they have right now, that is leverage in Senate. Now, what will happen to prevent that? I'm not so sure. What comes to mind is talking to, because I'm continuously talking to the friends in both the parties, the officials, whosoever. I mean, my network is not as vast as it should have been, but But whatever I have spoken, I have had in conversation with them, is that the PDM might actually try to get one of these assemblies dissolved before the elections. If that happens, for example, Punjab Assembly is the uh, might be the target. If that is dissolved, then there will be a question mark when the Senate election happens and how the Senate election happened without the electoral college of such a big province. So one is not sure what is one is sure what is the end game of the opposition, but one is not sure what course they are going to take. Are they solely relying on the conversations and negotiations with the military establishment and leveraging it with their massive rallies, or there is another strategy? It is not known right now. I mean, no one can say with certainty, and that is why wait and watch for next couple of weeks is the best.
Thanks. That opens a whole new question, like each series of questions that we don't have time to tackle. But I want to take another and last question from the audience and close our conversation on a lighter note. This is a question from India, and the question is, what do you make of the Indian characterization of Pakistan protests as civil war and the memes that followed? I mean, I think that was quite. I mean, what came out on Twitter and social media was quite hilarious on both sides. So let's close on a more lighter note.
Yeah.
Our conversation.
That was. Can I make a quick point? One is that in all our conversation, we forgot to talk about Imran Khan and his strategy. He's still a player. He's not out of the game. So he will have a strategy too. He will push back as well. It's not, military will probably bank on him. But on a lighter note, on this question from India, I think it's a lot of wishful thinking. And in fact, if we had friends in India, one would request them not to get into this spurious and needless propaganda, very negative propaganda. I mean, at one point, I almost thought that Pakistan military had probably paid the Indian media to say all these things, and then which they'd later come back and target dissenting voices and say, see, you're part of it. So anybody who talks about, there are, of course, tensions in Pakistan, but not the kind that was being described by Indian media. It was very funny.
Marvi?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that bit about the civil war in Pakistan, and so many. I mean, one thing that amuses me most is that despite all this, the controlled environment that Pakistan has for since very long, Pakistanis have not lost their sense of humor, and so many funny and satirical memes you could see. It was hilarious.
Thank you, Adam, and thanks for unpacking and complicating at the same time many of the issues that we've tackled today. Thank you so much for your time and for your enlightening answers. And thank you all for joining us today on this episode of Dispatches. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And apologies for my bad internet connection.
No problem at all. Thank you.